What's going on, everybody, and welcome to today's edition of SWACTalk, the show where we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your host, Charles Wells, and I'm coming at you on this hump day, Wednesday. I know that days of the week don't really matter too much to some of you all because you're still locked down, but it's SWACTalk time, and we're gonna keep on doing what we do, and just keep on going with the flow. So today we have a very, very special show. This was a special request by one of the fans of the show. His name is James Sanders. So shout out to him for the idea. And this was actually his idea, and I took it and I fleshed it out a little bit. And in my way of doing things, I added on. I had to be a little extra and do some more to it. So this is our SWAC football all decade team of the 2010s. I'm gonna list some offensive players and some defensive players, special teams players, and coaches. A lot of these was his choice to start, so shout out to James for giving me a good foundation, and I kind of went with the rest. And like I said, I added the stats and accolades when I could find them. So just a quick little, I don't even want to call it a rant because it's just going to be a quick little second speech before I start. It's hard as hell, pardon my French, to find some of these SWAC stats after like the year, from the year 2013 and past. Man, it's so hard to find stats, but I'm a completist, and so I did the best I could to bring this to you all with stats because I wanted you guys to get a better idea of what these guys did besides just saying, oh, this guy is good, this guy is good. I had, obviously, we all are SWAC fans. Some of us may not have had the opportunity to see some of these guys play, even though these guys played like 9 or 10 years ago. You may have seen guys play more than you have seen others because, they play for your favorite team, or they play for a team that you go to see play against your favorite team a lot. Me, I was out of the loop. When it comes to SWAC football, I mean, I always followed because, I'm a Jaguar fan at heart, but I lived in Florida for probably about five of these 10 years. So I didn't really get to as many Southern games as I would like. I did see all of these Southern guys play that are on the list. Spoiler alert. A lot of the Grambling guys who played on this list, they played earlier in the decade. I saw them because I went to the Bayou Classic pretty much every year, even though I was out of state. I didn't get a chance to see a lot of these guys play because I wouldn't always be able to take a road trip to see Southern play like Valley or somebody like that. No offense, but you got a wife, and traveling is like you got to justify every game that you go to. So that's just my little sidebar on where I'm coming from with this, and we're gonna not waste much time before we get into this because I don't want to really dwell too long on this. But Facebook.com/SWACTalk is the Facebook page. You can hit me up and we could talk about whatever. You got any ideas, drop them on me and we can go from there. Twitter.com/SWACTalk76, Instagram.com/SWACTalk, and SWACTalk76@gmail.com is the email address. So this list is in no particular order, and this is just guys listed by the way their names came up when we put the list together. So if nobody is first, second, third, or nothing like that, this is just a list of guys. So we're gonna start our offense off with the quarterback because the most people quarterback is the straw that stirs the drink. And the first name on our list is quarterback Devonta Kincaid from Grambling. And this guy took the SWAC by storm. He was a transfer from Ole Miss, and nobody really knew what to expect from him. And man, when he hit the scene in 2016, he turned the SWAC upside down. He was two-time SWAC Offensive Player of the Year 2016, 2017. He was first team All SWAC 2016 and 2017. Passed for 5,927 yards and 54 touchdowns with only 8 interceptions. Carried the ball 224 times for 672 yards and 10 touchdowns. So this guy got it done with his legs and his arms. And for me, this is the guy that I would say that if I needed you to get this done for me, I want the ball in his hands because, as you see, he could do it with his feet and his arm. And he led Grambling to a couple SWAC division championships and SWAC titles as well. So big time name to start our list off. Devonta Kincaid. I seen this guy put on some shows, so I was really hyped to see him and delve into what he was able to do. Our second quarterback on the list is Terrio from Jackson State, aka the White Tiger. Got another guy, JUCO transfer, took the SWAC by storm. Was a 2011 box to row All-American, 2010 SWAC and box to row newcomer of the year. 2011 SWAC offensive player of the year. 2010, 2011, both years first team all SWAC quarterback. He threw for 7,272 yards and 54 touchdowns. Guy could fill up the air with footballs. Jackson State at that point in 2010, 2011. Vicious passing game. Great receivers, great quarterback. You gave him any amount of time, he was going to rip you to shreds. You Jags know what he did to us in Jackson with a couple last-second touchdowns to snatch a victory from us. So this guy, it's not even the fact that, this goes beyond what his color is. This guy was a great quarterback. There's no two ways about it. When you look at great quarterbacks in the SWAC, you're always going to see tremendous passing numbers because basically from the mid-90s on, the SWAC became a passing league, and SWAC adapted really, really well to the spread offense. And the mid-2000s to probably like the mid-2010s, you saw more passing than running from the SWAC anyway. So you needed a good guy to spread teams out and to put the ball where it needed to be. So that's our second quarterback. Our third quarterback, when you say consistency and longevity and doing it all still some kind of way on the low, because this guy doesn't get the props that he deserves from people outside of the circle of his program. So I'm going to give him his flowers right now. But Austin Howard, quarterback from Southern, 4-year starter, all-time leader in pass yards and touchdowns at Southern. The definition of consistency. Now he was unable to lead Southern to a SWAC title. He did lead Southern to a West Division title in 2014, but he was also in the division with some tremendous Grambling teams at that time. So he had, he did work. But when you the other quarterback facing Devonta Kincaid, you can sometimes get overshadowed, which is crazy when you look at his accomplishments and his numbers. 2014 SWAC newcomer of the year, 2015, 2016, 2017 all SWAC second team. 9,268 yards and 80 touchdowns, 28 interceptions. Like I said, all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns at Southern. He followed up behind Dre Joseph at Southern, who I was tempted to put on this list, but I didn't. Dre was a great quarterback and put up some great numbers, but Austin was the guy that I thought definitely was a guy who needed to get that recognition because he doesn't get it. And, I argue with anybody that he doesn't get the props that he should. He's almost like, he was there, but sometimes I feel like people don't know what he did. And he had a lot of big games where he just torched teams, and they just happened to fall in that same window that Grambling was in. So it's kind of like, if you want to, keep tabs on on current things, with this Last Dance show going on, you had guys like Malone and Stockton and Ewing, Barkley, great guys who put up great numbers in their career, but they were facing Michael Jordan, and so they never got the championships. Now, I'm not calling Devonta Kincaid Michael Jordan or nothing like that, but I'm just saying, he quarterbacked the best team in that window, so it was hard to get that full recognition. But I just I'm going a little extra hard for Austin Howard because I feel like he should get the recognition that he deserves. Now, here's another guy who I don't even know. Maybe a lot of you may not even know him, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but I have to operate on the assumption that this guy was low key. I mean, he played for Pine Bluff, and Pine Bluff is a team who didn't have a lot of success in the 2010s. They were SWAC champs in 2012, and then they fell off the cliff immediately afterwards. They weren't that good before 2010, but quarterback Ben Anderson, another dual threat guy. I don't have his rushing numbers, unfortunately, but he had 192 yards rushing against Grambling one year, so he was definitely able to put up good numbers in the air and on the ground, and he led Pine Bluff to their only SWAC championship when they defeated Jackson State. But his numbers may not seem so great, especially his interception numbers, but when you look at what he is able to do at a program like Pine Bluff, he definitely deserves the recognition. He was 2012 first team All SWAC, 2011 SWAC Freshman of the Year, and then, like I said, he kind of fell off a cliff, injuries and Pine Bluff not being a good team, so his accolades dipped after that. But 7,387 yards, 50 touchdowns, and 34 interceptions. All right, the next name on our list and our final quarterback on the list is a guy who is actually still playing. And, for a guy to still be playing, he has 1 year left for college. A guy like that has to be a baller, you know what I mean? And this guy here probably would leave football, if there's a season, he would leave the SWAC as probably one of the top quarterbacks that come through in this decade, and that's a Gil Glass from Alabama A&M. This kid is a baller. I mean, starting since a freshman, been putting up video game numbers. Last year, I didn't know if he could make a jump in consistency from his sophomore year to his junior year, but the numbers he's put up already is just amazing. 2018, 2019, second team All SWAC. I look for him to be a real good contender in the preseason SWAC offensive player of the year race, and a mega contender for first team All SWAC because all his receivers come back this year. So 7,213 yards and 57 touchdowns. And like I said, if you look at his numbers, he's already passing wise close to eclipsing two of the guys on my list. Now they only played 2 years, so that's kind of unfair, but he puts the ball in the air. 57 touchdowns. He does throw a lot of interceptions though. He has 30 interceptions, but he's a gunslinger. Hard to bring down. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Quiet, work hard. Whatever cliche and intangibles you want to put on him. I stand for this dude, man. I'm not a A&M fan, but I stand for this guy. He's a guy on my team, and I've seen him play, and he's the truth. He led A&M nearly to a SWAC East Division championship. They had a couple close losses against Alcorn and Southern that he had last minute drives that just didn't come through. So this is a guy who expect to see some big things from him in the future. So those are our quarterbacks. Moving on to the running back, we're going to start off with another A&M Bulldog. And I was unfortunately unable to find any stats on this guy, but his name is Cadarius Lacy. He was a running back, 2011 first team All SWAC. And basically the bell cow for the early 2010 A&M teams, those teams who were flirting with the East Division race. Guy that could get you some tough yards. He was a great runner. I saw him play a couple of times, but unfortunately I don't have a lot of information on him, but he definitely deserves to be on this list. Following him is another running back that played in the state of Alabama. This guy was honestly should not have even been playing in the SWAC if things had went the way that they were supposed to, and that's Isaiah Crowell, Alabama State running back. He was the SEC newcomer of the year at Georgia. So you figure, with the things that happen at Georgia, if he stays at Georgia, he would have been one of the top running backs in the SEC. came to Alabama State as a transfer in 2012. Won the SWAC 2012 Newcomer of the Year. Was 2012 and 2013 first team All SWAC. 1,964 yards, 30 touchdowns. Numbers don't slap you in the face, but the guy was a mega talent. I think, he played on some decent Alabama State teams, but I think, he did find it going a little tough at first, but he was able to put in some work and produce. But when you make a list like this, you cannot leave a guy off like that. This is a mega talented kid, and he had some burn in the NFL. But like I said, all things considered, he probably should not have even been in the SWAC, and that's not an insult to the SWAC or him. That's just saying, the guy was on a trajectory at Georgia that would have put him, with the Todd Gurleys and guys like that came out of Georgia at that time. So that's a big time name. Now, here's another name that, again, longevity, durability, dependability, any other ability that you want to throw on this list, and that's Lennar Tillery, running back from Southern, the SWAC and Southern's career rushing leader in yards. Just, like I said, 2015, 2016, first team All SWAC, 2014, second team All SWAC, 4,856 yards. That's a record. I don't know, if that's going to be broken anytime soon. 45 touchdowns. Caught passes out the backfield. Quiet kid, came, like I said, came into Southern as a walk-on, leaves as the SWAC rushing leader. That's like a storybook type of thing. And this guy, he really blew up. 2014 he had a good season, but 2015 he blew up when Southern's offense kind of exploded, and he was the back. And, they had Austin Howard and a gang of receivers, and they put up great numbers. And when you put up those kind of numbers in the consistency, didn't miss many games with injury or anything like that. So when you know what you're going to get from a guy day in and day out, and he's still giving you 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, even though the whole defense knows that when they run the ball, he's going to get it. That's the epitome of what a running back is. Now, obviously, running games have changed over time, but this is a guy that could have carried the ball in the 90s, early 2000s, 80s, whatever, because he was a straight-ahead guy. He'd make one cut and go. But he was a guy that you knew what you was going to get from him, and as a defense, you definitely had the scheme for him. Our next running back is Delance Turner, Alcorn running back, tough runner. And basically he was the epitome of what Alcorn running backs have been. You go Arnold Walker, Turner, Deshaun Waller. You can throw Nico Duffy in there because he's gonna be a guy whose name gonna show up on a list like this in the future. Alcorn in their run depended on the run. Yes, they had quarterbacks like Noah Johnson, Lenore Footman, John Gibbs. The list goes on, and great receivers. But their running game and that big offensive line was what drove Alcorn to the heights that they reached, and that's with 2 different coaches. So Delance Turner, 2017 first team All SWAC, 2,123 yards and 15 touchdowns. They kind of did it by committee, but they always had a guy that would and this dude was tough to bring down. So he basically beat Southern in 2017 because Southern had a lead at half, and he ran the ball down their throat to win that game, basically. So that's a guy who knew, similar to Tillery, if he touched the ball, it's going to take guys to get him down. And when you play on a great team like that, there has to be some kind of balancing force, and he was that for those Alcorn offenses. Our next running back was Excitement. His nickname was Mr. Excitement. Martez Carter from Grambling, guy who can do it all. Kick return, punt return, running the ball, catching the ball. 2016, 2017 first team All SWAC, 2,628 yards, 29 touchdowns rushing, 9,961 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns. Got some good run in the XFL this year with the Los Angeles Wildcats. Mr. Excitement. I mean, what more? If that guy touches the ball, it was a threat for him to score wherever he had the ball at on the field. So if you was an opposing fan and you saw him get that ball, your breath was gone because you was like, please let my defense get him down. Because if he got in the open field, you could kiss it goodbye. As the great Ocho Cinco says, when he got in the open field, you can kiss the baby because he gone. And he put in work, man. And I'm really hyped about this list because when you were at games, you were watching these guys play, it's hard to appreciate the opposing players because you're too focused on the task at hand, and that's watching your team and rooting your team on the victory. But looking back now and going back and watching old games and seeing what these guys did, I see why the Grambling people called him Mr. Excitement. It's like, man, he got hurt in that Bayou Classic and came back. He turned the game around for them, and that's just what that's just what you want. Our next running back is Jordan Bentley, another guy who just finished up his career. Kind of battled some injuries, but last year he had a tremendous season, and he literally was the only guy to carry the ball. Well, literally, but he was one of only 2 guys to carry the ball for A&M last year with any consistency. He probably had over 200 more carries than anybody else on the team. So you knew that he was the guy who was going to run the ball when they ran the ball. His 2016 SWAC Freshman of the Year, 2016 Second Team All-SWAC. Battled some injuries in 2017 and 2018. Actually, didn't really play much those couple years. They had another guy come in and fill in and do a good job running the ball. 2019 First Team All-SWAC. A guy that a new coach like Cornell Mano, who came in just a couple years ago, was able to depend on while his passing game got going. 3,204 yards, 39 touchdowns. Like I say, heavy workload, but constantly was at above that 100-yard mark. Last year he ran for almost 250 against Alcorn. Just a really good back. Could catch the ball out the backfield as well, but mainly was able to run the ball. And even with a stack, you couldn't stack the box because you had to respect their passing game. But even with the defense knowing that when they run the ball is getting in his hands, he still was the guy to get it done. Our next back, another guy who just finished up his career, and that's Dewanye Tucker from Prairie View. Another small, shifty guy. Could do it all, return kicks and punts, run the ball, catch the ball. You give him an inch, he takes a mile. 3,108 yards, 30 touchdowns, 461 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. Unfortunately, for the sake of this list, Southern really did a good job against him both times I saw them play. So he never really got off per se, but I did see him play very good games against other teams, and just he had like an 80-yard touchdown run against Jackson State last year, over 200 plus yards against Grambling one year in the State Fair Classic. So his numbers are not hollow. He played on an explosive Prairie View offense, and a guy his backfield mate Jalen Morton could have easily made my quarterback list. Those 2 guys, basically led those Prairie View offenses. They just never were able to have the team success that kind of increases your stature in a conference. But as an individual, the kid was unreal, tough to take down, and hella cocky. But he did have the talent to back that up to an extent. Moving on to our receivers. Our first receiver is Chad Williams from Grambling. Big play guy. He was the threat for Jonathan Williams at quarterback and Devonta Kincaid. 2015, 2016, first team All-SWAC. 3,062 yards receiving, 28 touchdowns. Multiple big plays, as you can see with that number of touchdowns. A guy like that is going to get the ball deep down the field and take it in the end zone. Tough to cover. Single coverage, going to get eaten alive a lot of times. And, a great quarterback needs a great receiver. And a lot of these quarterbacks on this list have great receivers. And he was one. And another guy who was next to him was Chester Rogers, also from Grambling, 2015 SWAC all-second team. Second team all-SWAC, 2,232 yards and 15 touchdowns. Those are number one receiver numbers on some teams. But he played alongside a guy who was a really, really great receiver. Chester Rogers got some burn in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. And like I said, that when Broderick Forbes came into Grambling and turned that program back around from what happened in the 2012, 2011 seasons for Grambling, he built his team on running the ball, but they had great quarterbacks. Jonathan Williams, who was from Tampa, which is where I used to live, so I always champion Florida guys, even though I'm a Louisianian, but it's just a connection I feel. But Jonathan Williams and Kincaid had some great receiving threats. So you don't put up the numbers they did as quarterbacks without putting that ball in the hands of people who can make plays. And speaking of a guy who can make plays as a receiver, was Rico Richardson from Jackson State. If you watched Jackson State play, you had the unfortunate chance of sitting on the opposite side of the field. You saw this guy put in a lot of work, and he definitely was a baller. To be the offensive player of the year as a receiver that's just crazy. You don't see that hardly ever. 2012 SWAC offensive player of the year, 2012 first team all SWAC, 2011 second team all SWAC, 2,722 yards and 26 touchdowns. When you playing, being the guy who can make plays and bridge the gap for quarterbacks. They were breaking in a new quarterback in 2012, and he still was able to. Jimmy Oliver was the quarterback at that point, and going from Terrio to Oliver and still being able to have a guy to make plays and to lead them to a SWAC East Division championship and a SWAC championship berth is one of those things that you can count on. And having a receiver that's dependable, nothing like it. Dan Williams, another Jackson State receiver, another big threat down the field. 2015 first team all SWAC, 2014 second team all SWAC, 2,497 yards, 19 touchdowns. And he put up numbers on a Jackson State program that had, unfortunately was starting to start their decline. They did go to SWAC championship in 2014, but from 2015 on, Jackson hasn't been so good. But he was a guy who still was able to make plays, even though the bullseye was on him. Now here's a guy similar to what I was saying about Ben Anderson. If he played on a better team, more people would know who he was. I feel like a lot of people may not even know who this guy is. And that's Julian Stafford from Valley. Valley's been bad for a long time. And anybody listening to my show know I pick on Valley a little bit, but I do it out of love. But he put up crazy numbers in an offense that just was not that good. I think, playing for Valley is not much you can do. You're going to have to chunk the ball around a lot because you're losing. But that doesn't mean that you're going to automatically put up numbers. But he put up numbers. He was 2014 first team all SWAC. He was a hell of a return man as well. So 1,719 return yards, 3 touchdowns on the return game, 2,564 yards receiving, and 16 touchdowns. That's an all-purpose guy. That's you look at all-purpose numbers, he's going to be right there. And to be able to do that on a team like Valley that did not have much success with offenses. In that period of time, Valley was rushing for negative yards in games. So to be able to still do that with teams, pinning their ears back because you losing and still being able to make those kind of plays and score touchdowns, that's a testament to his ability. Lee Dawson is another guy who was a big play guy, kind of a low-key guy. He was the top receiver for Southern's 2013 championship team. He was a 2012 and 2013 first team All SWAC guy. 2,285 yards and 23 touchdowns. You know, like I said, every one of these teams, this was the number one guy in one way, shape, or form. And Lee Dawson was that kind of guy to make some big plays. He made some big catches in the championship game. He made some big catches throughout the season. In an early season game against Prairie View in 2013, that kind of boosted Southern to their championship run. He had a huge game in that game. They played like a double, triple overtime game, 63-59 or something like that. I forgot what the score was, but it was a high-scoring game. And he put up some good numbers in that game. So now we're going to move on to our tight ends. Jordan Payne from Alcorn was a guy who was able to balance out that attack that they had, and having a tight end that you can get yardage from is important in an offense. You know, a lot of teams may not use a tight end, but you can value them very much. He was a 2014, 2015 first team All SWAC guy, 2013 second team All SWAC, 1,280 yards and 21 touchdowns. Rincey Rollins from Jackson State. I wish I had more numbers on him. I only have his 2011 stats, 591 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was a guy who Terrio could depend on in the middle of the field. 2011 first team box to row All-American, 2011 third team Sports Network All-American, 2010, 2011 first team All SWAC. You know, not much else can be said about that. Dylan Beard, another guy who was a key cog in an explosive offense from Southern. 2017 box to row first team All-American, 2016, 2017 first team All SWAC, 1,167 yards and 14 touchdowns. Jonathan Dorsey, Alabama A&M, 2013 first team All SWAC, 2016 second team All SWAC, 1,411 yards and 17 touchdowns. All these tight ends put up over 1,000 yards in their career. That's catching major passes for that position, because nobody throws the tight ends that much. So anybody, even in a 2 or 3 year span, to put up over 1,000 yards is still tremendous accomplishments as a tight end, because some people, tight ends, don't catch but 10 passes a year, if that many. So that's a good productive group. Now moving on to the offensive line, obviously stats ain't really where it's at, but I did want to list some guys, and this was the hardest thing to do because I had no idea. I just went with guys who I had heard enough of. First, we're gonna start with Titus Howard from Alabama State. He was drafted last year, 2018 first team All SWAC, Terrio Olmstead. If you're a Saints fan, you know his name, from Pine Bluff. 2011, and this is the crazy thing. This kid got drafted by the Saints and has had a good NFL career. Never made first team All SWAC. 2010 second team All SWAC. 2011 second team All SWAC. 2012 second team All SWAC. So that just shows you that as long as you can get there, once you get there, what you do is what carries you. Anthony Mosley from Southern, 2015, 2016 first team All SWAC. 2013 second team All SWAC. William Waddell from Grambling, 2017 first team All SWAC. Isaac Sampson from Alcorn, 2013, 2014 first team All SWAC. Taryn Jones, Alabama State, 2010, 2011, 2012 first team All SWAC. Zion Payette from Jackson State, 2012 first team All SWAC, 2011 second team All SWAC. And Chris Brown from Southern, 2010, 2012 second team All SWAC. You could throw in Jodeci Harris from Southern. That's another big time offensive lineman. The offensive line obviously is what drives any group. No offense can be successful without offensive line. I don't care how good a quarterback you have. I don't care how good receivers you have. I don't care how good running backs you have. Unless you have a really good offensive line, you're just gonna be stuck. So, those guys were guys that were gonna get guys out the way and provide time for quarterbacks and holes for running backs. So salute to the offensive line, because they do the